Hey, this is Mike Shank, and this is the At Speed podcast presented by Rocky Fork Company.
Here we are back again, ladies and gentlemen, with an At Speed podcast. In a regular year, we would be talking perhaps glowingly about the debut of the Meyer Shank Racing team in its first full season of IndyCar racing. But instead, Mike Shank, we're talking about a weekend that never was or never happened. And who knows how long we're going to be sitting here talking about stuff that never happened, right? I mean, just how frustrating, I guess, was it to get all the way to St. Petersburg, Florida, geared up for your season opening race and to have it the rug pulled out from under you, so to speak.
Well, listen, Tim, I'm glad we're getting back together here. I think we're in unprecedented times, and I don't even know where to start. I have so many thoughts on this. I can tell you from, if we take it back, a little more than a week ago to where we showed up at St. Pete. We showed up there. We knew we had a problem in the world. We started hearing rumors about issues around the paddock. We went about our business, started setting up contingency plans before they started talking to us. I got to tell you, through the process, though, Tim, IndyCar, Roger Penske, Jay Fry, these guys communicated with us every step of the way. We immediately recognized that these guys haven't been in this situation before, and it was extremely fluid. And it came down to the governor of Florida and the mayor of St. Petersburg to really lay the law down. And, by Thursday night, we had an agreement in place to run with no crowd. And we had a security system in place so that only the teams would get in and 25 each person. And obviously that got changed when we showed up the next day. And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it was a tough deal. Didn't blame anybody, though. We didn't.
Oh, sure. I mean, absolutely not. I mean, as you look back on it, Mike, how much jeopardy would y'all have faced, do you think, one way or the other, of spreading this coronavirus, if in fact y'all had, just with the race personnel and the corner workers, et cetera? Do you think you could have gotten by, or do you even think about that now? I mean, in other words, if it's just you guys, in the pits, et cetera, I don't know. Just as you look back on it now, do you wish y'all had run?
No, we were on the wrong side of that deal, bud. The wrong side would have been able to run. Now, I didn't realize it myself at the time, the real overall global effect that this terrible disease has got on us right now. I didn't quite fully get it. I get it now. Okay. So when we look back at this, we had spent, before turning a wheel, all the teams have spent at least $150,000 per car to be there. So we're there. That's done. So The thought was, let's just get this race in. And we all agreed. Every one of us agreed. We also agreed to the no fans. We wanted to do whatever was the safest thing to do for everybody. At the end of it, though, and even these things were emerging and changing so fast that to race, even with no fans, is the irresponsible thing to do. And IndyCar, NBC, of course, the state of Florida recognized it very quickly, and we changed our process. Looking back on it now, it was absolutely the right thing to do. Looking ahead into it, I wanted to race.
Yeah. I guess the way I look at it, though, and I'm not being cynical about it at all, because you're right. I mean, people have to make decisions, live with them, et cetera. But y'all all still ended up going back to the airport, getting in line at security, going through security, getting in an airplane and flying back, right?
Right, yeah.
I think you see my drift there. So anyway, and I'm not making light of it at all. Mike, let's just jump to the real brass tacks here. So what kind of, measures have you taken since you got back? I mean, are you the only guy at your shop now? I mean, how are you guys, a full-time race team that's on hiatus, how are you guys approaching this?
We're like a lot of teams. We're going to take some time off here and make sure everybody's safe. Me and one of my key people will come in and out during the day at opposite times just to check on the building and the safety of all the equipment. Mm-hmm. And we'll let some time pass here before we decide and what we do and when we bring people back. One thing's for certain, though, is that I'm monitoring all of my guys, along with all the Andretti folks, closely about anybody feeling not well, right?
Yeah.
And so far, I got to tell you, I got 30 in my group, and they got 100 in Andretti's. All of us are okay as of this hour. And but we're taking our temperature. We're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. I've got almost all my guys tucked away somewhere nice and, safe. And we'll be ready to pounce on this one when we come back.
What is it like? What is it like for you as a leader of a team, owner of a team, to be sitting there in meetings, with like 20, 30 guys, maybe more than that, at a race weekend, all staring at you, wanting to know what your answer is? What is that feeling like?
I got to tell you, this is how all team owners will be judged in the future for everybody in our racing business. And what do I mean by that? That means there are teams right now that are flat laying people off, and you lose your job right now as we speak. And there are teams with varying levels of that. I've chose to keep all my guys on. Okay, they all receive a full paycheck for the next couple months for sure, until I can't afford or can't stand to do it another minute, which means I've run out of money. Later on in life, when we've gone past this, I hope everybody recognizes that work for these companies that kept them on, the kind of people that they're working for, and what their contribution to our team means to me and to Jim Meyer. But it's just not me. Roger Penske, Bobby Rahal, all the Andretti's, they're all going to be judged on how they treat their guys from this very moment going forward. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Everyone's in a different position, right? Someone only can do what they can do. It's tough when you're looking at 30 guys and you're saying, guys, here's my plan, but don't worry, we're going to be fine. They all look at me like I'm sideways, right?
Yeah.
So for my guys, I've tried to reassure them that it is our number one priority, that we pay them and they stay part of this family.
You guys are part of the entertainment industry as much as anything else. I mean, are you under the impression that your guys will be eligible for the possible government checks, et cetera, for unemployment at this point? I mean, have you I would think as a team owner, you've at least looked into that, right?
Yeah, I mean, all my guys would be eligible, but it's a small percentage of what they make. Like, they're not going to survive, right?
Right.
And we're trying not to do that. That'll be the last resort, absolute last resort. I've had a couple interesting things. We've had at least two team owner conference calls with Roger Penske. He does an outstanding job on these calls. He lets us know what his thoughts are exactly, what he wants to have happen, what he can and can't do. Our intention is to race in May at Indianapolis. And I think what you're going to see is if we can get past this CDC 8-week non-gathering deal without it getting extended, that we will race and we will shove it all in the month of May, meaning the Grand Prix and then the Indy 500. And it'll be a really exciting, say, week and a half putting all that together.
Yeah, it is sort of like at the moment, at the snapshot of this very moment, which can change in 24 hours, it does appear to be the possibility of things getting not back to normal, but of there being a possibility of those kind of things revving up again, pardon the pun, in the middle of May, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, depending on what experts you hear now, some people would like to see the United States just shut down for like 6 months, et cetera, and just let this thing run its course without people giving it to each other. But because you never know, that's the mystery of this thing. It's almost like it's floating around out there looking to touch someone else. And so we'll see where that goes. But that would be an interesting way to get back into the swing of IndyCar racing, in essence, opening the season with a couple of weeks at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right?
Oh, my Lord. We're going to be clamoring for content and entertainment, I believe, when we come out of that crap. And it's going to be truly an exciting time. But, what Roger has said to us, Penske has said to the teams is, make sure your boys know that they're going to have to switch between oval and road course fast and get their heads around it. And I think at this point, everyone just be happy to have a job and It'll be a lot different perspective, Tim, when we come out of this thing on the south side of it.
Yeah. Hey, what did you learn? What did you learn about your team and the way it reacted last weekend? What did you just learn about them from a professional standpoint?
I think I know for a fact on my team, they just got stronger. They started protecting each other, looking after each other. We had meetings every day and to talk about what our plans were. That felt like it almost got stronger. Like in tough times, people toughen up, and I got every sense of that. And I think a lot of teams probably, if you have a reasonably good team, you'll have competitive people that understand when tough times get going. We got to stay with them. And I got a truce. It's the craziest thing, but it gives me the greatest feeling when I see a group of 20 people just get stronger, right? And start protecting each other. Yeah.
It's funny. My favorite tweet of you from the whole weekend was the one you tweeted of your left, I think it was your left elbow, which is starting to get quite the workout from, don't slap hands, don't bump fists, just pop elbows. But that's kind of where you are right now. And it's not just your IndyCar team, obviously. IMSA has put is basically down at the moment, not really clear when that's going to, because nobody knows when things are going to get back to anywhere close to having the ability to run races and stuff. But, y'all were getting geared up for your second race of the year at Sebring, right? And where does that program stand at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. IMSA reacted first on last Wednesday, a week ago today. And they reacted first quickly, and they said, hey, we're not – actually, to be honest with you, the World Endurance Championship that is racing with us at Sebring called it first. The next day, IMSA postponed it. And then they also at the same time said, hey, we're going to get through this, and we're going to reschedule this, and we're going to tell you right now when it is. And they did that. And that was a great positive move. From the IMSA side, I can tell you as it stands today, the MidOhio race just got delayed yesterday. I know those folks up in Mansfield want to race in the IMSA weekend. I'm certainly a huge supporter of MidOhio and do anything I can as a team owner to help them, and will always be here for them. And I'm hoping that we will have an opportunity to do that race sometime in the fall or whenever we can fit it in, to be honest. I don't care at this point.
Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think there's the next race would be Detroit for IMSA right now, and we're still trying to get that in.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, because you've got plenty of time to sit around and think right now. Do you, as a grizzled team owner, obviously this is your first full-time season in IndyCar, but you've been a team owner for 2 decades or more. Do you sense that y'all will just sort of like in both series just accordion the schedule out, meaning to get a quote unquote full schedule in once this thing starts going? As best you can do. Obviously, some races are almost stuck in the weekends that they're scheduled for, but you could run a weight race in Sebring in October, or November. You got to figure, because it's a dedicated racetrack. But what is your sense of how the schedule, once it gets going again, will be impacted? Could you see IndyCar running 6 or 7 events in a row?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything's on the table now. What we need to do is we all have obligations to our sponsors and partners. We have a guaranteed amount of races we're going to run, and we need to try to get to that number in the best way possible for all of them. So whatever they got to do, I understand, and I'm in, right? So we're going to be there to support them. By the way, they've already rescheduled Sebring for November 11th to 14th, so that's already on the schedule. Yeah. Hell, we talked about, we could pick up a sprint race in Daytona. There's just, we got some southern tracks that we could race at. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that is a key. What's kind of critical, like you said, are the Midwest tracks where once you get into the late fall, that's a no-go kind of situation. You personally explain to people what you do to kill time now. Besides sit around and worry. Like you said, you've come into the office a few times, you're checking on things, but are you like the rest of us? You just kind of sit around, kind of like watching the news reports, just thinking about things? How are you personally killing time?
Well, I think it's my responsibility to stay up with as much public policy as I can to be able to inform my team of what I think is going on. So that means, watching lots of Fox News and whatever national TV to see all the daily briefings. I think it's important that I stay on top of that. Mm-hmm. Also, every day I check with the health of my company or with the people that work for us. Right. So I'm just making sure that we don't have any outstanding problems or people start not to feel well. I need to know about that immediately, and also talk with Andretti's probably every day or every other day, for kind of the same reason. That's the first thing. The second thing beyond that is working with our partners that we have, trying to figure out where they're at, what are the issues they have, what do we need to do to be able to go forward. And remember, we're just trying to get through this. We want to make sure we take care of them when we get through it, and of course in the future. So there's always plenty to do, and I try to work out every day just to try to get into some rhythm here with my wife, and so far it's not too bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're the guy who sponsors this show, Brian Bailey from Rocky Fork Company. I mean, the grass is still going to grow. People are still going to need their grass cut, things like that. I mean, but those are the sponsors, the lifeblood of the sport. I'm just, as you look on this, so you're paying attention to the stock market, you're paying attention to companies really taking it on the chin now. How do you think sponsorship will be affected as you just look at it, 6 months from now?
Obviously, certain industries will not be able to go forward in motorsports if they were involved. That's plain to see. It looks to me like some industries are actually going to do very well during this time, but more than not, though, it's going to be a lot of hurt people here, which including a lot of my really good close friends that own their own small businesses. We're all pretty much all small business owners. There's some great programs that the government's going to put in place through the SBA, I think, that could help us all if we get in real trouble. Mm-hmm. And I've just tried to, keep up on all that and, kind of help where we can.
Kind of a melancholy look at this too. Man, IndyCar was really the last couple of years, but especially this year, there was back in December and January, there was a sense of momentum that was undeniable. You agree?
I couldn't agree more. And I think you're getting to the point where now this could take a hit, right? That momentum.
Yeah.
We talked, that was a subject that came up quite often in the media down at St. Pete. And it's tragic, actually. Now, I'm not trying to focus on it because I still think IndyCar is in proper hands with a proper trajectory. This is definitely a dip in the curve. But on the other side of it, if we can get through this, it's gonna skyrocket, and I'm all in. I believe it's going to, and with Roger at the helm and the resource he can bring to this thing, and they're still working at IMS. They're still working on the buildings and updating it like he wants it. So we're going to have a race this year. I'm praying to God it's in May, but even if it's in September, it's going to happen.
Yeah, the Indy 500 is going to still be the Indy 500 if they ran it December 1st on snow tires.
Right.
Hey, Mike, last couple of things. As the weekend went and y'all suddenly found out, Friday, I think it was, when they finally pulled the plug on racing, period, this past weekend, how did your team kind of did y'all just did y'all just spend give people kind of a sense of what it was like from that moment on until y'all got back to Columbus? Obviously, y'all packed the trucks. They all made their vigils back, took their vigil trips back. But what was it sort of like did y'all have meetings every day? How did y'all pass the time, I guess?
Yeah, so the group, the sports car group was loaded for Sebring back in Columbus. So they unloaded all their cars and took the rest of Friday off. The IndyCar group came in Friday morning at St. Pete, and we tore all the equipment down, very organized, very quickly, and we all got flights by 6 p.m. We were out of St. Pete. Wow. And that took a huge effort, right? So the rigs arrived home on Sunday. Monday, the boys came into the shop, unloaded everything, and then we regrouped and set up a plan to go forward for the next couple of weeks. It's pretty systematic, and I think the best thing I could do for these guys, and Jim Meyer and my wife agreed with me, is just communicate, tell them what's going on, don't hold anything back, make sure they understand we're all in, we're doing everything we can, and it's gone off pretty well, actually.
The times we've videotaped this podcast in your shop, there, sitting over there to the right is the cockpit, the monocoque section for the excuse me, your Indy 500 IndyCar, and when you can't have the whole, I would think y'all aren't having the whole team come in all at the same time to work on things at this point. But just from a development standpoint, what's the biggest thing that takes a hit in this time when you can't have necessarily everybody in the shop at the same time?
Well, I got to tell you, there's a couple little things on the IndyCar side that do take a hit developmental wise, but not horrible, because we were so well organized going into November, December, January with that program. So meaning, this is what I mean by that. We're building the basis of that Indy 500 car mostly happened in January and February. So the big hitters, the big hitting fitment things and low friction reduction program, all that kind of thing has already been done. And a lot of the stuff is already built, to be honest with you, Tim, the sub-assemblies, we call them.
Yeah.
So not too much. What it does is it allows us a little more time to rub on the body fit of that car when we come back in April to start prepping up to go to Indianapolis in May, as it stands here today anyway. It allows us to rub on that car a little bit more. It's going to be very, very competitive. We're talking there could be, a spread of 3/10 on 33 cars across 4 laps. Now think about that, so it's huge. So we do have some time to rub on that now.
I know it. I mean, it is crazy, man. I mean, it is crazy, and we've talked about that before, and we're going to talk about it a lot more. Just, it's not even as I've described it to some IndyCar drivers. The difference between you being on the front row and being on row 9 is not the blink of an eye; it's the start of a blink of an eye. And that's just hard to fathom, isn't it, Mike? I mean, the performance of how the performance window has gotten so tight in these things. I mean, compared to like 30 years ago when you might have one guy going 230, back in the heyday, 233, and you might have another guy making a field at 216. You know what I mean? It is crazy how the field is tightened, right?
Yeah, and it's the hard. I said this before to you last week, even, or when last time. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in racing. You can't have any slip ups. You got to give the driver everything you can on the car side. The driver has to give everything he can. The crew's got to change the tires in 5.6, 5.8 seconds. I mean, it's brutal. The pressure is brutal, but that's also what it makes it great. So when you do well, like we had a couple great runs last year, it really makes you proud and kind of reaffirms that I belong here. I can be here. We're good enough to be here. And for that, I'm pretty grateful.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the bad thing about a movie like Days of Thunder is it looks like what separates drivers sometimes is one guy just willing to put his foot down and the other guy not, which is crazy. What really separates teams now is obviously you've got to have the driver willing to stick it in there in a corner, but you've got to have a perfect storm of preparation, like you said, of rubbing on that car in January to get 1/10 of a second out of it on, in qualifying on May the 17th. I mean, that's what people don't understand. I don't think have enough appreciation for racing, but clearly all of that comes to having a driver be able to go around there at 233 miles an hour or something, which is to this day is still one of the more breathtaking things you can ever witness live. And I don't know, I've always that's what's always been the allure to me is just the team effort, and then finally a Chuck Yeager climbing in the thing and going for it, right?
Oh man, I wish the folks could understand how these drivers put themselves on the line, especially at Indy, like during qualifying and stuff. And there's some things you can tell when people are just really going for it. If you look at the wing angles, you can physically see the wing angles. A spectator can. And when that rear wing's pointing straight up, when that nose of that wing, the front leading edge is pointing damn near straight up, you know that they're taking everything they can out of that car. And that driver's got to hang on to that thing like you can't even believe.
I know, Mike. It's crazy because when you talk about these cars, the great thing about Indy cars, is the old idea once they get up to speed, they can race upside down, there. But the point is what they're trying to do finally. When you're really going for it, you're trying to lighten how much downforce you've got. You don't want it to squish too much, And it's like, well, it's just a daredevil show, but it's so intricate. It's hard I think, for the average person, not necessarily fan, because I think fans appreciate it, but the average person to really have an appreciation for what's going on, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, in this day, it used to be you could physically see all the different things team would do to cars and understand the development, but now all the cars look the same for the most part, and but it is so. But see, conversely, it's why teams like mine can be competitive. I don't have to have an aero program. Really, I don't have to have a gigantic damper program like you used to. It's really coming down to the driver, which is cool, right? Like I like that part of it, and but it allows teams like ours to kind of parachute into these deals and have good results. And it's the same thing that happened in Rolex Daytona Prototype. That's how we established ourselves there years ago. Getting the rules to where more people can be competitive are the key to true success in series, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, people having a shot. You know what I mean? That's the deal. That's the deal.
You got to feel like you can win. You got to.
Yeah. Not just be there, because there were a lot of guys. Man, when I first started covering IndyCar racing, there were 3 levels of cars: the guys that could win, the guys that always ran in the middle, and the guys that I call them the jammers. Back from the old roller derby days, the guys that would jam the field on the mile ovals, and actually kind of made it a more exciting sport, but they had no shot other than, getting their picture in the paper when like maybe Rick Mears or somebody went by them, I agree that if you really are into like everybody having a chance, so to speak, the parity of sport, then I think IndyCar has really got a pretty good formula going right now.
Yeah, no question about it. And I just hope we get a chance to show everybody this season. I mean, we had 26 cars at St. Pete, which is crazy. That's awesome.
Crazy. Yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah. Yeah.
The problems IndyCar are talking about nowadays are, the pit lanes at some of these tracks aren't big enough, aren't long enough.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a problem to have,
Yeah. By the way, MidOhio, is that one of those tracks that could use a new pit lane? I mean, just being totally objective here, is that? I mean, there's always been that talk of maybe moving the pits over to the back straightaway to give people a little bit more elbow room, et cetera. And of course, those pits at MidOhio go uphill too, which is interesting. But is that a place that could use a little more space, so to speak?
Yeah. They really need to do some work there. And, I love that place. I support it with all my heart. And but the pit lane is in bad shape for the most part. The downhill part is horrible. I do believe, and like you just mentioned, moving the pit lane over to the inside would be much better. But, it takes a lot of money to do that and a big financial commitment. So maybe someday that'll happen in our lifetime. But, nonetheless, I'm grateful that it's on both our calendars, IMSA and IndyCar, and MSR will always support them for sure.
Oh, yeah. Hey, last couple of things. One of my little more intriguing photos tweeted out of Formula One down in Melbourne over the weekend were all of these tires sitting there that were going to go back to the factory. They have no use, the next place they race. They're one and done kind of tires, you know what I mean? Because you get a certain kind of a formula for each racetrack you go to. How is that? How does that translate with IndyCar and Firestone tires? That's pretty much the same kind of idea. Do y'all use the same tire at several different racetracks, or is it a different formula for each track? I'm talking about the road course type stuff.
There are groupings. I would call it, a better word would be groupings of tires in IndyCar. So there'll be a certain compound that they use maybe at 4 or 5 of the tracks. And certainly the ovals are a little bit different, and they change among themselves. But it's not every single track. No one could afford to do it.
Yeah, because I think because a lot of people, when they see a race has been canceled, they just think about the race teams. They don't think about the support teams like Bridgestone or Firestone. They don't think about the engine manufacturers who have all kinds of a presence on race weekends, and of course, the broadcasting network. I mean, they were probably gung ho at a moment, maybe having one of the few things that was going to be live that people get to watch over the weekend. And NBC finally had to pull the plug itself because it obviously is run by people. They don't want them getting in harm's way either, right? I mean, it is interesting the village that it takes to put on a major sporting event.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people affected by what's going on right now. I don't even know how to begin. It just spins off and off and off. So let's just, in a lot of ways, Tim, I wish we could just shut the whole country down for 2 weeks and let us try to just jump this thing and be done. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? We'll try to get back in the next week or two, Mike, and see what's developing, because there will be developments over the next several weeks as this thing plays out, either positive or negative. But man, it was great getting together with you again, man, in the middle of this. We thank the Rocky Fork Company for making this happen. But, as the old saying goes, you're going to keep safe, right?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Let's do this again.
Hey, we'll be back next time, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget us at Speed Podcast. Mike Shank always has something extremely interesting to say. But until next time, this is Tim May for Mike Shank for the Speed Podcast. We'll see you next time.